Yo, what's up guys? Another video on Lucifer, and yes, you did read it right. I can clear R5 in 30 seconds on this account, which is absolutely insane. It makes use of a solo R5 with a Bale, and then with the Bale you also get the Lucifer in there, which is a specific tuning. I'll show that later. The other teams are mainly focused on doing a little bit of chip damage. So let me first show you how a run works from the perspective of the Bale team. And then we're going to look at all of the runes, how it works, how I got there, and that kind of stuff. So I did use this guide for BJR5 solo. I will show that later as well, where I also show all of the tuning and everything. So there's a few fail-safes here that make it work with a really weak Bale, because normally your Bale has to do like, what, 70k to actually make this properly work. But since there's a Lucifer in there, there's actually a time gap where the other teams can do a little bit extra damage. And for that reason, it just works. Also, if the sync is a little bit worse, I have still seen it work. So that is definitely a pretty interesting team in the first place. And as you can see, 33 seconds. And this account, let me rephrase that. This account is currently, how many days is that old? We're looking probably 14 days. 14 days, yes. So might you ask, how did it go from yesterday 10 days, or the yesterday video 10 days to now 14 days? That video was on delayed. That was the same, the only reason. But yeah, as you can see, there is still like a few units moving after that. And that time gap of the few units moving after that make it that the two teams on the right side are strong enough, or well, they're actually kind of weak as fuck. Like, not gonna lie, they're pretty freaking weak. But it still makes it that the whole thing works. If there is a branding, you do a lot more damage. So if you would get more sophisticated branding on your other teams, it would be better. So definitely a few improvements I could make on those. I will mention as well, but let me first look at the runes. We'll talk about a few replacements and a few improvements I can make on pretty short notice as well, I would say. So first of all, we have this team on the left. This thing is just the speeds that I will showcase later, or let me just actually showcase it right now. So we have this thing, and this thing, I'll also link it in the description down below. It's not made by me. I'm not sure who made this, but it's probably written on this thing as well. But I used this tuning where I had 3 men in front and then 3 men in the back. And then we also have, wait, do I have the Lauren in front? No, I also don't have Lauren in front. I could actually place Lauren in front here as well, because my Lauren is tanky enough, but it worked in this position, so I didn't really switch it. So what I did go for was the middle one. Oh, you can't really see at the bottom, but you just use all of those things that are written in here for like the exact same speeds, the exact same HP as all of that kind of stuff. The only thing is you place your Lucifer, because normally you have a lead in here, but I placed a Lucifer in here. So in this case, the turn order would be the Colleen, then the Lauren, then the Bale, then the Lucifer, then the Dagora, and then this thing. So the time in between the Bale moving and then these two moving gives it enough time to where I can clear the whole thing. You could also make the Lucifer move in front, that is totally fine. Like Lucifer in front or behind the Bale, that's totally fine. As long as it just moves before these two. And then you have the other team. So let's first look at the runes. So this thing is just tanky enough with a shield set in there and then fight. This is also double fight will, make sure it dies. This thing is the specific HP and then defense as well. And then double fight with a will. This thing has to be will and preferably also enough crit rate. In this case, I don't have enough crit rate on this. So it's a little bit worse. 100 crit rate would be better on this, because then it would actually always crit. And since I only have a crit lead of this, I don't have it. The lead that I'm using over here is Lauren, because that's just my only option to use as lead when I place Lucifer in this position. So, and then for artifacts, it's just a little bit of crit damage is up. Bale, of course, is the most important one. I did have to max skill this. His runes are relatively weak if you check the runes by itself. Like, those are absolutely not gorgeous runes where you will be like, yo, these runes are something to write home about. No, these runes are, except for this one, I would say that this one can classify as pretty decent. But all of the other runes are terrible. Artifacts, I did farm a little bit of artifacts. This one was actually pretty good for it. And this one is definitely very good for it. So a bunch of those artifacts, well, the first skill crit damage doesn't really work except for the first hit, which is the lowest damage out there. But this one and this one together, I could remove this one for like a crit damage max or crit damage low. Definitely would help out a bit. But that's why the Bale doesn't do that much damage as well. So yeah, that's the team over there. Then we have the team in the middle, which is just team try to survive, try to do some damage. I got some damage dealers in here. 2 of them are not free to play. The easiest replacement would be an Ikaru. And I could also place a Ken over here. So those would be easy replacements that you could, or not the Ken, but it's called the Shadow Cast, or no, wait, not Shadow Cast, the Shadow Dance. I don't know, that other thing that was the collab unit, but not the collab unit, Bayonet, that's a different game, doesn't matter. But those 2 units could replace it. Ikaru is definitely a good replacement, but I don't have Ikaru yet on the state where I would have enough defense. So for that reason, I just didn't make it. But you definitely have to check out doing enough damage. An homunculus in that position would also be an option. I de-runed the homunculus for this team at this moment. But then looking at the team, this team, I don't have any will runes on those because I don't have that many will runes. All of the will runes that I have are on this team. Fastest moving, I have the Panda and hope that he would do an S2, but he actually doesn't start with an S2. He mostly starts with a skill 3. It might desync it a little bit where the Colleen doesn't die, but if he starts up with a skill 3, everything is just so weak on the boss side that it's still fine anyways. This thing is moving after that, also triple fight. I did do a lot of those fight runes from the Sky Coin event, and that's why you see a lot of fight runes on all of these units, and that's why I do have a lot of fight runes laying around. I mainly will use that for giants, but it's pretty useful over here as well to do a lot of damage. Astar is actually a pretty nice pickup. Astar does do a lot of damage. It's definitely a very high damage unit. Shihwa, I would say that you would need a lead here that would work for most things. Maybe a better lead than Shihwa. I do have Astar, so that helps out a bit. Is getting El Sharion. El Sharion will also definitely help for this one. Then this team, I have 100 resistance on this, so the economy I can maybe start off with a cleanse if it works out. We have this thing moving after, and then afterwards it's once again a lot of those fight runes, and the crow is on the damage set that you get from the what's it called, from the scenarios, and then you have the Prilia moving after that as well. So all of this already works out perfectly fine. The only thing I can do to upgrade this very easily with all of the same units and runes would simply be get better bail, because my bail is like really bad. It does have a good amount of attack, but the crit damage is actually super low. So I could definitely improve that. And then I could improve the middle and the right team to just do more damage as well, because in the end, the units that are 4-star, they're not skilled up. So the Astar and the Shaolin, they're actually lacking quite some damage, but they're still doing an okay-ish amount of damage. You could get better cleanses in. You could use a team with a Freya. So let's say you have a Freya, which is the Fire Sylph. Then you have the Ikaru, so you would place that in front, so your team always gets cleansed the moment it gets hit. And then you can use like a team-up kind of team where you place in a bunch of those branders on skill 1. Interestingly enough, this unit or this account does have the 2 fire hackers. If I had a Freya and these were skilled up to be 75, it would actually be interesting to have a team up between an Ikaru, both of them, and then let's say a Shihwa, and also of course skilled up would be better, to get like a guaranteed branding in, because if the 3 of them all use the skill 1 right at the start, there's very good odds for branding to happen. Of course, the passive of both of those are not gonna do too much, I would say. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting unit. They do have a decent amount of debuffs as well to make, for example, a Crow hit harder or a Can use its skills. So that's definitely options you could work out with improving that. Other improvements you could make is just get better runes. That's the very simplest thing. Get better runes, but I would say unit-wise, Freya would definitely help. Ken would help. El Sharion would help with the leader skill. I actually have the interaction between those 2, if they're not pushed back, that we have like a buff up for the Prilia again, because Prilia moves actually first, then the Konomiya, then Prilia again, so that's just a guaranteed armor break for that one, because the middle team doesn't start off with an armor break, so even if the Lauren misses, it's the Prilia trying to armor break as well twice. And what you have to keep in mind is that your stronger surviving team has to be in the middle, because the moment that this team dies, it will start focusing here. And if you put your Bale in the middle, then any of the 2 teams dying would focus Bale team. So always put your Bale team either at the left side or at the right side. So it will never start tanking 2 heads, but it would maximum be tanking 1 head, like if things goes wrong. So for the average that I'm running on this right now, it's about like 35. I've seen one run of like 1 minute a few times where it completely get desynced and everything, but it still kind of works out. There's quite enough debuffs out there that you could say like, okay, I can get Ken to a perfect AI scenario as well. And that definitely does help out. And the good thing is that the Lucifer has kind of long animations on his skills. And because of Lucifer having slightly long animations on his skills, it makes it where there's enough time on this team that the Jensen doesn't move in between. And that whole part just helps out a lot for the syncing reason. And actually the Lucifer at first, I was like, oh, Lucifer is definitely going to desync this whole thing. No, Lucifer actually works pretty well. Would you say like, okay, you have been running a Lucifer account for a longer time. What would be a really good improvement? Because in the end, a Lucifer in the Bale team is never going to be faster than 30 seconds. Because of the Bale moving in there. Well, maybe it would be like 28-ish seconds if the Bale kills and then the Lucifer doesn't have to move after that for a second time. But it's always going to be this amount of time. After the jump, it's going to be kind of the same amount of time as well. What would be faster? Well, it would be simply placing the Lucifer in a different team. And then I would go for a normal BG team on the left and then the Lucifer in a different team. But you have to make sure that your Bale then does a good amount of damage. Of course, with branding in there, it does do a good amount of damage. But it's hard to depend on always getting a branding in. The best brander unit you can get out there is probably a Ken. And the Ken is that unit that you can get from, I think it's over here. This one, is it this one? Coins. I think it's this one, monster pieces. Yes, over here, this one. You do have a few events where you do get a lot of these coins in. So you definitely can get this one fast. This is the one that I got so far and I used it a lot for the Rift raids. This one would be nice for skill ups, or not for skill ups. This one would be nice for leader skill. Probably better than Shihua, or for sure better than Shihua because it works on all units. And this one is just very nice for the damage output in there. And where can you get those as an early game account? There's a few over here. There's like 200 or like 600 in here, which is quite a lot. Plus the coin shop also gives a few of them. So there's definitely a few nice places to get all of those. Farming R5 then of course gives you a lot of coins. It also gives you like the highest material of all of those. So that definitely helps out. So now the next stage on this account is actually going to be, a lot of people were asking me for a Giants team, but I actually haven't really farmed Giants or not a Giants team, for Dragons team. I haven't farmed too much Dragons on this account yet at all, because I think for an early game account, it's more interesting to farm a lot of Giants first. First get those runes in for a bit of damage runes, a bit of everything, get a little bit of artifacts in. Might you ask, how did I farm artifacts? That might actually be an interesting take. Let's end this for now, because artifacts farming, I do think in an early game account, it is useful to get at least a bunch of artifacts in. Just save all of your artifacts. I actually have 800 artifacts, and I literally saved all of the artifacts that I get right now. But let me show you how I did the artifact farming. We did Punisher script on 10, and I used this team. And this team was able to clear it most of the time. I did have to put artifacts the moment that I get them. For damage on light, I did get a few good damage on lights and stuff, or damage from light, and that this one was purely focused on damage from light. This was changed right now as well. Been switching around those artifacts a little bit, but yeah, that definitely helped. And then you go left tower, right tower, boss. And this one I was also farming on B10. This one did fail a little bit from time to time, but that is just buff block missing. I started off doing this at first, but the moment I got the Astar, I started doing this. And then this thing just has to move first and then try to get the buff block in, and then you just kind of pray. It does sometimes fail, but at least it's good enough to get your first artifacts in. Because those first artifacts you can then also use for like damage on water, damage on fire, damage on dark, blah, 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 etc. Yada, yada. It just helps out a lot. It's same as like getting fight runes at the start. Getting a few of those damage artifacts. And even if it's just, I was saying like 15% before, 15% may be a little bit difficult to get early on. But just like even if it's like 9% or 12% or something like that, that already helps out a lot with the damage on this. So now the next step is going to be actually replacing the Teshar in this team. That is going to be the next thing that I want to be working towards, and that is placing a Julie in this. I am not entirely sure if this is already possible, but if you see a video pop up anytime soon that I got like 20-second team on an account that's less than 3 weeks old, you know what is coming on that one. So guys, thanks a lot for watching on this one. Let me know in the comments what other things you might like me to do on this account, and see you as always in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab, which has the dungeon guide archive and the video guide archive, which contains all of the guides that you need. Hope to see you there.